Hi everybody and welcome to my video. I managed to nose up the intro when I was there on the day, so I'm doing this in the post edit. I'm at Brands Hatch in the beautiful county of Kent in southeast England, and if we have a look around at all these banners and everything, they're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the venue, and everywhere you go there's nods to the incredibly rich motorsport history that's gone on over the years. Now I love cars almost as much as I love bikes, so it's nice to see it all really. Looking at the circuit then, we've got the Indy circuit up at the north, and then the Grand Prix circuit incorporates this wooded area to the south as well. And the pit straight is on the northern end of the circuit, and that line of garages is where the British Superbikes are situated. All in all, very picturesque place. And we had a lovely day for it as well. Now my aims for the day were to go and take a load of photos of anything and everything, but the deal was that I wasn't going to use any automatic settings on the camera. This was all going to be manual. And there were a few little pictures I wanted to specifically take, but I'll go through those at the end. The first place then I set up was just around the corner from Druid's Hairpin, which is to the left there, and it's a slow corner, but the Superbikes are accelerating quite quickly down this hill, and I thought it'd be a good chance to get some photographs without having to track too quickly. Once I found a spot, I just kind of got amongst it, started shooting. This is my Sony a6000 with 28 to 70mm lens on it. I did have my Canon here with the 70 to 300 lens, but I'd left that switched on all night somehow, so that wasn't working. Right, let's see what we got. First few shots then, they were all out of focus a little bit. Didn't take long to get that dialed in. And then once that was all sorted, started getting pictures like this, which is really overexposed. So I just needed to play around with the exposure settings a little bit. First decent shot there. A little bit out of position because I'm waving my camera around like a madman with no tripod. But this one's a little bit better. As we can see, the shutter speed's a bit better in this one because there's a bit of motion blur in the background. Shortly before the end of the session, we ended up with this shot where everything kind of came together. Just need the Brands Hatch groundskeeping crew to go and clear that bramble and it would have been perfect. Right, so it's lunchtime. I've had something to eat, I've had a little wander about, taking some videos for some of the other stuff I'm talking about. Track's all quiet. So, excuse me. So I'm going to take a little walk through the paddock and see what's about. When I said go and have a look around the paddock, I meant the outfield paddock. All the Superbikes are on the infield. So I'm not sure if I can have access to that just as a spectator. But there's still loads of cool stuff to look around. One of the things I absolutely love about British Superbikes is the accessibility of it all. A bit different at Brands Hatch because the Superbikes are isolated on the infield, but you can still wander around the paddock and see all these bikes being worked on. And you walk past the racers or they'll jet past you on their scooters. And it just gives you this lovely feeling of sort of being included and being involved with it. Back to the photography then. And I decided to spend the next session near a place called Pilgrim's Drop, which is on this long straight here, with a view to getting some bikes going a bit faster from right to left. Another challenge was shooting into the sun. That's why I've got this sunshade on the end of the camera lens. Incidentally, this was the Junior British Superbike Championship, which I don't follow, to be brutally honest, so I couldn't identify any of the riders. As before, we've changed our distance to the track so the focus was all off, but it didn't take long to get that dialed in. One of the extra challenges was this bridge. You can hear the bikes approaching, but you can't really see them until the last minute, so tracking them was really difficult. Having said that, about halfway through the session we started getting decent photos, and I really wish I'd had my 300mm lens working, because I think we could have got some really cool photos. Anyway, short session, and it was on to the next one. Once I was done at Pilgrim's Drop, I took a wander through the woods to a place called Sheen Curve, named after the legend that is Barry Sheen. And this is another lovely thing about Brands Hatch, is you can get out of the sun by taking a wander through the woods. At Sheen Curve, they got these holes in the safety fence for taking photos through. I had a little go at it, but didn't really work, did it? So I moved on. And I walked around Westfield Corner to halfway along the Derek Minter Straight. At this point, I decided I was knackered, so I wanted to sit down. So, got my little fold-up chair out. Making this look easy, I'm sure. I think this geezer here wondered what I was doing. But I'd recommend these little chairs just while we're here. They fold up really small and they go in your backpack all right. And if you're lugging a tripod and a big camera bag around, yeah, that was worth its weight in gold. Easy money. So it turns out I was wrong before. This was actually the end of the sport bike session, but all the following photos are from the second practice session of the Superbikes. Here's Ryan Vickers on his Honda, and again they're going past quite quickly from left to right, so my tracking took a little bit of fettling, shall we say. But focus was up there straight away. Chain link fence is in the way, but doesn't really matter. And then finally, a bimotor. I've been waiting for these all day. I've got Joe Talbot here, and then a couple of laps later, Max Cook. This is a bit overexposed, but I've got the raw file, so I can edit that. Once Superbikes had finished, I walked up to this corner called Hawthorne, and something I like about this is we're on the inside of the circuit, so there's a massive bit of it without any safety fence getting in the way. Not only that, the track's a little bit closer as well, meaning that my 70mm lens was capable of taking some decent pictures. All the exposure settings I've got from earlier on just up the road were pretty much perfect. I had to do a couple of little tweaks. But yeah, these turned out really, really well. And I decided that this is where I was going to do some of the Superbike photography towards the end of the day. For the last Superbike session, the pre-qualifying, as well as Hawthorne, I wanted to go back down to Pilgrim's Drop, but on the other side of the track from where I was earlier. And I managed to get there for the end of the Supersport session, so just watch these guys whizzing by. Here's a picture of Jason O'Halloran on his Honda, and it was just getting too difficult at this point in the day, so I started shooting back up the track, but then you get these kind of lackluster photos where there's no relative motion or anything like that. So I knocked it on the head and I went back to Hawthorne. And these were the last pictures of the Superbikes I got during the day, and I'm really happy with them. Lovely one of Andy Irwin there. I think just a little crop and tweak and he could be back in the middle. Then of course we had some cloud come over because it's British summertime, so what would that be without any cloud? Which shot all my exposure settings to buggery. And I did have a good play about with it, but never quite got it back. I'm sure you could edit this out though. And then finally got one of defending champion Carl Ride. Happy days. So earlier on I talked about goals. The first one was a picture of Harley McCabe from my mate Jack, who works on his bike. And I think this is my favourite picture of the day. Mason Foster in the Moto 4. That's for my mate Connor, and he works on his bike. And finally, the motors for me. I've got this nice one of Joe Talbot was a little bit lackluster when you saw it earlier on, but just a little tweak in the edit, livened it up a bit. And then we also saw this one earlier, and that's had a light editing, and I think it really sort of turned out well. And finally, this one just took me by surprise when I was looking through them. Danny Kint just waiting for someone to go past him and give him some space. Yeah, really happy with how that lot turned out. So that was my day at Brands Hatch. It's a lovely venue, a lot of history. Yeah, a really nice place to be. I chose Friday to come down because I wanted to focus on my photography and messing about with the camera rather than the racing. And yeah, the practice days are really cool. Like, they're super chilled out, not queuing for anything, no queuing for car parking, stuff like that. I stayed pretty much till the end as well because my mates' team were out doing their practice session, so I wanted to get some photos of that. So I'm probably not going to queue getting out of the car park either. So yeah, yeah, Fridays, quite an underrated day, I think, to go and watch a racing. Give it a go. Okay, see you on the next one. Ride safely.